Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's Save Report. This is Sejohn, your host, and along with my host companion Devon.
Hi, I'm Devon Decker.
And I have to say that I've been doing a lot of thinking over the past week. As you all know, last week was our 200th episode. But that means things are getting a little stale around here, Dev.
Mm-mm.
Uh-huh.
Oh, God.
Yeah, no, things are getting a little stale. So you know what? I've decided, and I've talked about being this guy before, but I've taken this to a new level. I'm gonna be the sound effect guy from now on.
Oh no!
Yep, that's right. I went ahead and I've gotten a soundboard, but I've decided that I'm gonna be an even worse version of the soundboard guy. All right.
Wow!
And that guy is going to be the guy that has the soundboard on his phone. Yeah, that's right. I'm just going to hold my phone just up here and let's see what other great sound effects do I have here. Oh yeah, nice, a little extra one in there. You know, they don't want to pay that copyright claim to the original drum roll. I do have 10 different farts on here though.
Okay.
Ah, yeah, that's good podcasting right there.
Okay. So, ironically, with your little fart soundboard, you stumbled into an existential crisis I was wrestling with right before we started recording. And I thought, it's my fault. It's my fault for thinking that the symphony of farts would be the end of the, soundboard. But no, that's my fault for thinking that was enough for you.
Never enough.
Never enough.
Yeah, Jeff. We're in the back end now.
We couldn't have done 201 episodes before we did this. All I wanted to do was 201 episodes so that I could do something on our 202nd episode. I'm still going to do it. This is just like the teaser for it. And I want to talk about the existential crisis that somehow you stumbled into.
I want to say this right now. If somebody pointed out to me tomorrow, because this will drop tonight, if somebody pointed out to me tomorrow that, hey, you did the soundboard bit like back in like episode 85 or something like that, I would both believe them, not be surprised. I mean, yeah, okay, I completely forgot that, and I don't care.
If we were going to have already done the soundboard one, it probably should have happened in the sound report, which I believe was our 8th episode. So who knows? Someone knows. Well, I'll get an email from the people who email me directly, friends and family and all that type of stuff. And in fact, so the Fart Symphony Existential Crisis, that doesn't sell you? That doesn't have you just slobbering, wondering what the fuck I was thinking about?
No, of course I am.
Farts are the ghost of poop. He's coughing. He hit his cough button. I need to vamp because I killed Sejohn.
Oh, God.
He had a soundboard that he could have turned to fill that silence, but no, he just decided to die.
Oh, God. I couldn't do it, man. This is an existential crisis for you, this realization?
It was just one of those situations where I have a friend. He listens to the show. I'll give a shout. Hey, Mark. And he has been communicating more in emojis. It's very interesting. Like when you think about probably the first people who wrote in hieroglyphics, right? Like not the first people, but maybe the parents of those people who invented hieroglyphs.
The parents of the people who invented hieroglyphs?
Yeah. Like when they're like, maybe this is worthwhile. Maybe we should use it. Like, that's what it feels like with all these emojis that he's been sending lately. And it's because I've also been we've been communicating more on Discord because Discord has been just a lifesaver in this whole COVID-19 thing. Mm-hmm. So we communicate on Discord, and Discord has limitless emojis. And I don't mean an infinite number. I mean, it's like the emoji took the pill from Limitless. To come up with all sorts of new ideas.
Yeah.
But even with all that, it's the old reliables that still get the work. And he sent me a poop and a ghost and said, ha, poop ghost. And then I got to thinking, first of all, I can't believe that the poop emoji has not been like mashed up with other emojis yet. Like the poop emoji is just the poop emoji. We don't.
I will say that Bitmoji would like to have a word with you.
I don't know Bitmoji.
Bitmoji. Let me put it this way: if you think that the Discord emojis are taking it a little too far, don't go on Bitmoji. Your head will explode. People like interact like they're best friends with the emojis, like literally like as if they had gone into their phone emoji movie style. Like there's Bitmojis for all of them, and I'm sure that there's one or two of the Bitmoji poop emoji like dancing around with somebody at their wedding or some nonsense.
I'm just saying, like, I want the poop emoji with the sheet over it. Like, it'd be a waste of toilet paper, because I imagine that's what his sheet is made of. Also, the poop emoji we're talking about is a show about everything, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the proof. It was originally ice cream.
Uh-huh. And then people just thought it was poop, and now they've just kind of owned it. Isn't humanity great? I mean, it's like Frindle in the real world.
It is a bit like Frindle in the real world. But yeah, so he sent me Poop Ghost, and then I thought about it, and it's like, well, that's a fart, right? Like, but it's also, a fart is a poop ghost of the past and of the future. They're incredible.
Oh, no. They're pre-ghosts.
Yeah, they're like banshees. They could like be there to warn you, like the specters of Scottish folklore, or is like, oh, you're done. Oh, no, I remember when I was alive.
Yeah, I have a hard time, and I know exactly where this comes from, not thinking about farts as little construction workers in your butt.
Is it because of Fraggle Rock and the Van Doozers?
No.
I'm glad.
Very specifically, Nickelodeon. When we were children, when we were wee lads, they had their bumps that they used to do, right? And some of their best bumps were like ridiculous, like as the school bus turns and shit like that. Like so they would do these little skits in between because they weren't sticking to any real schedule. So some shows would end at like 4:23 and they needed to fill 7 minutes before the next thing came on at 4:30, right?
What was that about? I'm totally into this, but what was that about? Like, remember those schedules? Like, this also ties into something else I want to complain about.
I think Nick Jr. still kind of adheres to it, and I will be honest, the cynic in me thinks it's all about advertising. It's because they were giving so much time for advertising that they legitimately in an hour could not, like, advertisers would be like, I want time during Rugrats. Not I want time during 4 to 4:30, but I want time during Rugrats. So Rugrats is on, and they've sold off all of this time to advertisers that they're like, oh shit, we've got more advertisement than show than we do in this half hour. And somebody else was like, fuck it, we'll run it. But you got to at least let me explain where the little.
No, tell me. No, that's it. Well, no, because I want to. This is great. It explains why something is bothering the crap out of me lately. Yeah. So continue. Yeah.
But no, and so one of the bumps that Nickelodeon used to do is they would do a news reporter interviewing a construction worker working on I guess the joke would be a gas line or something, right? And then at some point they're like, oh no, like there's an eruption coming, and everybody's like, you got to hold on to something, and the reporter would be like, that's ridiculous, and then all of a sudden the gas would come by and the reporter would disappear, and it would show the construction workers all like looking around, and then all of a sudden they would pull back to reveal that they were inside some kid's stomach and he had just farted in class.
Well, that's terrifying. That terrifies me.
Some like fucked up magic school bus, like horrible accident. Like Arnold farted and Miss Frizzle got blown out of her shoes. I love this show. But yeah, anyway, so advertisers are the devil. But is
and that's why we don't have any. Also because I don't think anybody wants advertising time on their show that just did 10 minutes on farts.
Oh, okay. No.
Or maybe they do. Maybe it's the fact that we haven't leaned into the farts. We have Dick and Fart Joke Magazine. That's an episode of this show. But, like, we're not a Dick and Fart Joke Magazine. Not only because we're a podcast, but because we don't really do these jokes. You're right. It is all downhill after our 200th episode.
Yeah, it's the later seasons of Family Guy. The realization that we could just phone it in by making fart noises into the microphone for the rest of our lives and still have an audience somewhere out there.
I gotta tell you, Family Guy. the last 4 episodes of Family Guy have had a joke a week that have just slayed me. Like, no
and you know what
reason.
I love out of my comedy shows? At least one joke that really makes me laugh.
It's not just a joke that makes me laugh. It is a joke that sticks with me, and like I wonder, like, oh, what was that? Like, why? Where is that from? And invariably, it's always been from Family Guy, and I can't believe that because I don't think of Family Guy as being something that like makes these jokes that matter to me.
But you know what you're talking about. You're talking about the same feeling that we all had with the early seasons of Family Guy. Like, I remember sitting in a high school classroom with my teacher being involved in this, of us just sitting there and quoting Family Guy for 20 minutes. Like let's just do an entire episode because somebody would start it off and the rest of us would pick it up. And like that is what old Family Guy was known for, was making the jokes that just like became part of the like basically Simpsons kind of has this thing, and it's what everybody tries to get to is like the quotable moments in Simpsons, right? But what Family Guy did in its early seasons is it was just that like nonstop, right? Like it was every fucking line from early Family Guy was worth then quoting with your friends the next day. It became like the water cooler cartoon show overnight. And then it's part of the reason that a lot of people don't like later seasons is that it stopped being that and started being more about like how racist can we be without like getting called out on it, and apparently very. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that they're getting back to some of the old shtick.
Yeah, I mean, like now I'm talking about Family Guy on this. I also want to. I'm going in so many directions. I'm so happy. This is what happens when you mix Coca-Cola and black coffee.
I'm glad you said full Coca-Cola, because if you said Coke and coffee, we'd be having an off-mic conversation.
I know, it'd be like, Devon, stop the recording. We need to talk.
Your heart can't take this, Devon.
It's so yeah, 2 things. So I want to share the one that stuck with me, and it made me sad because at least the other ones that have stuck with me like are still semi-relevant, or the joke is their irrelevancy. Like, it was like 2 episodes ago where they're like, I can't believe that Donald Trump went to jail and then killed himself. And then, like, little text is like, we're writing this in 2019. Did we nail it? And they did that joke like 4 or 5 times with people. All because of the whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. In case someone needs the joke explained. But then this week, Joe finally got Netflix and he watched Chinatown and it really messed him up.
Oh, God.
So, like,
what? Chinatown? Why does it need to be Netflix? Okay, anyway, continue.
Well, what bothered me is that Chinatown is no longer on Netflix.
Yes. Why not pick a Netflix? Okay.
Why not pick something like, but it's Chinatown. And so, like, the normal 4 guys at the bar talking, Peter, Quagmire, Cleveland, Joe comment about Chinatown. And it just kept getting funnier as he complained about what Chinatown did to his mental state.
Is it still Patrick Warburton doing Joe?
Oh, it's still Patrick Warburton, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's
nice.
It's excellent.
So is that it? Is that where Fart Ghost led you? What do you mean?
Oh, no. Well, now that we're talking about quoting Family Guy, I won't give their real identity, but they went by Stu because of the character Stuart from Beavis and Butthead. I don't know Beavis and Butthead. I know Cornholio and the movie. I know Love Roller Coaster from Beavis and Butthead Do America. Like, specifically that.
Do you know enough to know that Hank and Peggy Hill were characters on Beavis and Butthead before they were on King of the Hill?
Yeah. I mean, I know that
you know
basis.
all you need to remember about Beavis and Butthead.
Right,
as
cool.
somebody that loves that show, even when they brought it back, loves that show. As far as cultural oeuvre goes, the most you need to know is that it led to King of the Hill.
Also, big thumbs up, big middle finger to Beavis and Butthead, because we passed you, bitches. 200 episodes. Say report doing 201. But yeah.
Yeah, take that, one of my most respected comedic influences.
That's not mine. I just said that. But anyway, so there's this person that I attended high school with who went by Stu because of Beavis and Butthead. And I will never forget the day. So, like, I worked on a film. It is called Slither. And when I was talking with those guys who, like, hired me to work on that film, they're like, oh, you know Stu? And I'm like, yeah, we went to high school together. He's like, yeah, we worked together at Radio Shack. I feel like I could say Radio Shack because Radio Shack, they don't exist anymore, right? They're gonna sue me from beyond the grave.
We're gonna lose that sponsor in the last Radio Shack.
There's a poop ghost, is Radio Shack. Ugh.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, like he was the type of person that I wanted to have work on this script with us. And then Family Guy came out on DVD, and I realized Stu is not funny. He just quotes Family Guy, but nobody knows Family Guy.
Man, yeah. I mean, that is. Look, as somebody that fell into this hole themselves, for a lot of early adopters of comedy, I will even say this: a lot of early class clowns in the making, like their go-to is to find a show that they find funny and just repeat it, right? And then it's what kids do, and it is something that kind of goes with you. And that's why I say when we were sitting around quoting Family Guy, it wasn't just us. It was also like teachers involved in these things.
Yeah.
And like what we considered to be authority figures were also like watching Family Guy with us. And like the only other show that I can point to that I had that sort of experience with would be something like The Simpsons,
Mm-hmm.
and it's rare that you find that one that crosses generations like that. But yeah, that not so much anymore.
No, not at all. But that's just something that's always stuck with me is that, like, because Family Guy, we watched the first episode as a family because it was on after the Super Bowl. So, like, the Super Bowl ends and they're like, yeah, we'll check it out. My dad doesn't really like animated stuff, but it's on. I don't want to change the channel. We'll watch it. And also, I think my parents wanted to watch it because is this something that our 12-year-old son should be watching? Right?
Right.
Two birds, one stone. Because, like, you have to imagine South Park had been on for 3 years, and that everybody was clutching their pearls. Even the type of people who like would have been all right with South Park, the fact that it was an animated series, like kids are going to want to watch this, even though it's not for children.
Yep. And then every asshole in the room has to point out that cartoons weren't always meant for kids, but I like it's it's
well, I mean, Disney, if anything, Disney and the golden age of Disney, your Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, I know I messed up the order there, that really kind of validated this idea that cartoons were just for children.
Invented the idea.
Yeah. That's a better way of putting it. Oh my God.
They created the idea that if we make these for kids, we can get a lot more money and audiences and all that shit. Like it was, and that is the cynic in me. Obviously, you can take a step back and you can say that part of it was also them saying we want to make these family friendly so that more people can be involved, as opposed to just like Warner Brothers at the time. Although I say that, but Warner Brothers' first cartoon, Looney Tune, is like a direct ripoff of Mickey Mouse, but like no joke, anybody that's got HBO Max now, go watch the very first ever Looney Tune that's like listed there, and it is almost beat for beat a Steamboat Willie knockoff. But anyway, Disney was like, we can make this appeal to a larger audience, which is the nice way of putting it.
I mean, if we're really going to point a finger at something, and we've been pointing fingers at this one for a while, if you listen to our Darkman episode, Batman 89 and the just explosion of toy sales that came from that film.
Yep.
Like, that's where they're like, oh shit, kids are a viable market.
Right. Yeah, but you have to acknowledge that Disney was years before that, right?
Well, I know that Disney was years before that, but that's when, I mean, like Little Mermaid was probably being worked on, but then targeting and making the advertising look like it was more family and kid friendly.
For sure.
I can totally see that being a result of kids as a viable market because of the toy sales related to the Tim Burton Batman movie. I mean, I've been cleaning up because I'm in quarantine. What else am I going to do? Do you remember that for Batman Returns, they're like the lids of the sodas at McDonald's were little Frisbees?
Yeah. They they did the whole marketing with the penguins too. You could
Mm-hmm.
get like the penguins with the little toys on their heads and stuff like that. They would like shoot missiles and stuff. I don't know if that was McDonald's or
That
where,
was a
but
toy. That was
yeah.
one of the like retail selling toys. Kenner had the license at the time. But yeah, it's just one of those situations because The Little Mermaid, for all of its under the sea and part of your world, right? As soon as Poor Unfortunate Souls happen, it becomes a very adult movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that scene with Ursula where she's a giant and gonna friggin' just murder everybody because she got the trident. Like, that's not kid friendly. Like, as a child, I blocked that out. And then I watched Little Mermaid as an adult because of American Pie. Not because of American Pie. That was a joke. I don't want to give American Pie that much credit. But and then I get to that scene and I'm just like, this is scary. Like, for a kid, this would be scary.
Yeah, man.
But hopefully they fell asleep by this part.
Yeah, I was gonna say usually that's the point of the movie where most kids were checking out anyway. So you know, they're very good. Lo and behold, Disney is very good at making a movie that people then latch on to and remember for the rest of their lives.
Right. But yeah, so Family Guy, we sat down, we watched that first episode as a family, and then it was, yeah, Devon, maybe we don't really want you watching this series. I mean, these are the same parents who are like, we don't want you watching The Simpsons, so I taped cardboard to the screen and listened to it.
You jackass. I'm surprised your parents love you.
Well, I think the best part of that was I was like, but it's what they're saying that bothers me, not what's on the screen. So then I just watched it muted until, like, finally, all right, you can watch The Simpsons. We're done. Like, we get it. We understand. Like, maybe you are smart enough because you freaking thwarted us twice in our attempts to get you not to watch The Simpsons. But Family Guy was one, like, you know, you can't see it. And also, early Family Guy, like, the reason why Family Guy got canceled after those first 3 seasons was it was preempted all the time. It was very rare to see an episode of Family Guy because of just how they worked with the schedule. So, if you were somebody who saw Family Guy when it was new, like, you could have owned that. Just like I mean, I'll take credit. I used to do the same with The Critic. Because remember when The Critic would air at like 3 a.m. on Comedy Central?
Yeah, man. Like the only shows that the only place I could watch The Critic, Dr. Katz, and then later Home Movies. But then what was the other? There was a whole bunch of really obnoxious cartoon shows that they would push off to then. Duckman.
Duckman, yeah. Well, Duckman was Saturday night. That was USA Network, which is owned by Universal, which is connected to NBC, trying to be like, we want to get the eyeballs of people who aren't watching Saturday Night Live. So they put together a programming block that started with the Weird Science TV show, which if there was ever going to be a series that we need to look at for a very special episode, it is Weird Science.
Ooh, the 2021 special episode schedule is
it's forming
up for grabs now. Yeah, so that is a good one to put aside for then.
And then Duckman would be on after it. And I think I laugh so hard when I think about the fact that I was encouraged to watch Weird Science and Duckman in 1992-93 when those started. But then, like, you can't watch The Simpsons. And I'm like, these shows were not appropriate. If The Simpsons wasn't appropriate.
In retrospect, Weird Science, I think, might be the worst of the 3.
Really? Well, that's what we're going to find out, right? Because, like you said, the schedule's up for grabs. And I mean, that show, I bought some DVDs of the Weird Science series, and I have seen a lot of my sensibilities were inspired by that show. Lo and behold.
There is a lot of artistic heft behind Duckman, and I say that in all earnestness. It was a Klasky Supo show, if I'm not
Klasky
mistaken.
Supo, yep.
And so, like, we're talking about, like, the guys that basically created our understanding of like, Nickelodeon television and, like the camps then formed, you know, were you a Cartoon Network kid? Were you a Disney kid? Were you a Nick kid? Right? And, like, there is a history behind Duckman that is actually weirdly like important to the history of animation in a way that like Weird Science wasn't animated. I'm remembering that correctly,
No, it was
right?
live
It was
action.
live
Yeah.
action, right? Yeah, it was live action. So like, and it was a John Hughes thing, and like, there's a lot of stuff that like we now don't really care about. Is not maybe not the right way to put it, but like, there's a lot going on there that kind of really rubs us the wrong way. The same could be said of even like the Ferris Bueller TV show. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, with Jennifer Aniston as Jennifer
Jennifer
Grey's
Aniston,
character.
right?
Yep, that's right.
Was it her or was it Sarah from no, I'm thinking of Square Pegs. Never mind.
Yep,
Sorry.
you're thinking of Square Pegs, but also you could be thinking of Parker Lewis Can't Lose, which was the better adaptation of Ferris Bueller for television.
Nice. Oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all those things. Yeah, John Hughes TV shows are like a weird thing to look at, but Weird Science, yeah, I shouldn't have been watching that when I was like under 10 years old. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, I'm very happy that I did because I think I learned a lot of good things. I think that even then in the 90s, the people who were making that show realized that there was a lot of fucking problems with the 1986 movie. 1985, yep. Maybe 84. It's that whole, because 86 is Ferris Bueller, so Weird Science has to have been before it. But really what I think about when I look at Weird Science is two things that we got from Weird Science, which is Vanessa Angel and Lee Tergesen.
Okay.
Because Vanessa Angel wouldn't have been in Kingpin if she had not been in Weird Science. And Lee Tergesen is still showing up and stuff. I love Lee Tergesen. I'm not even ashamed to admit how much I love Lee Tergesen. What are we talking about? What were we doing? Family Guy's still pretty good.
We were introing the show.
Wow, half an hour later. And the intro, are we done? You think that people get what the Say Report is now?
Oh yeah, let's do the hard turn because we eventually run out of ways to segue. But Dev, I got a Stadia.
You got a Stadia. Awesome.
Yeah. I thought maybe this is something we should talk about. Like act as surprised as you want for the audience, but like the reason I got a Stadia is because Devon hit me up one day and was just like, "Hey, you got that YouTube Premium though, right?" And I was like, "I do." Well, and I thought you just wanted to use it, and you were just like, "No, they're giving away free Stadias to anybody that's got YouTube Premium for some reason." And I was like, "All right, let's do this." And sure enough, signed up for it, got the Premiere package, showed up 2 weeks earlier than it was supposed to. Like I wasn't supposed to get it till after the holiday. It was supposed to come like November 30th, November 29th, oddly, which I think is a Sunday. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll have this before Christmas. That'll be great for Christmas vacation. And then it showed up last week. And so I've actually been dicking around with it for a bit. And it is, we got to talk about the Stadia, Dev.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about Stadia. We might be one of the only podcasts that does. That isn't like a Stadia podcast. I'm sure there's like 3 or 4 of those out there where like it's a podcast all about Stadia.
The more and more that I play, the more and more that I play with it, the more and more that I realize I stand by what I've always felt about it. Is it's really more than anything a proof of concept for their streaming capability. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to stand the test of time. I think, unfortunately, the Stadia is probably going to go the way of the Ouya or whatever that thing was called. The Ouya. What was that thing? Ouya. Thank you.
Ouya.
And like that in that same vein, like it's going to be on shelves mysteriously in some place somewhere in like 5 years, and everybody's going to be like, the Stadia, remember this thing? But that being said, there is a lot going on with it that I bet is going to find its way into the video gaming world going forward, and other platforms as well. But not least of which is like the controller feels super good, man. I think you kind of talked about that when we first mentioned it, but like I gotta reiterate, like it's one of the best feeling console controllers that I have had in my hand in the last like 20 years, like really since like maybe the N64, and even then I didn't love the N64.
Yeah, that is the only complaint I have about it is the placement of the D-pad. But if you're going to do a twin stick like FPS game, that's the controller that you're going to want to use because it's shallow travel on your trigger buttons. Your hand like fits into it in this way that is incredible. to me.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I looked at that Stadia thing, and I do want to say, because if you are listening to it, that YouTube Premium thing is still going, but you have to have had YouTube Premium prior to November 6th in order to take advantage of that promo. That's just like something you should know, because it's still going on. And I'm really looking into it. I'm hoping that there are actually going to be Black Friday sales, because there are 4 colors of Stadia controllers, and there's part of me that wants a white one and a black one to go with my wasabi and my limited edition midnight blue.
Yeah, man. I have to ask you've got a PS5 in the house, right?
Yes, well, I was gonna, that's what's going to be my transition point, but I do have a PS5 in the house. Yes.
How does the controller feel? Like are we in the same ballpark? Is it miles ahead? Is it miles behind?
So I love the DualSense controller as well. The only reason that it ranks above the Stadia controller is because of that D-pad placement where I want a D-pad. And that's where Devon Decker specifically wants a D-pad, because I do a lot of Metroidvanias and games similar to that. In fact, I used the DualSense when I beat Momodora 3. That was the controller that I used, because I'm like, I want to put it through its paces, and here's the type of game that's going to do that for me. And every game that I've played so far, and I've only played 3 games on the PlayStation 5 that are for the PlayStation 5, which is Miles Morales Spider-Man. And that game is built to have, the middle, because it's a first-party game, it makes more sense to have the 2 sticks right there. And then basically the D-pad is an extra set of buttons. The same with Demon's Souls. I mean, Demon's Souls was a PlayStation 3 exclusive, so when you go up 2 generations and you're playing that, one of the things that appealed to me so much about Demon's Souls is how they made the face buttons, activate things, and you use the triggers to attack. That blew my mind. But if I were playing on an Xbox controller or a Stadia controller and I had to drop down in order to activate stuff, I would hate that. I know personally that I would hate doing that. Going up to press a button to, cycle through my magic, that feels more natural to me. And then the last one is Astro's Playroom, which is a pack-in game with the PS5. And that one, it doesn't even use the D-pad, and that one is more of a tech demo for the controller. So, obviously, if you're playing that game that was built to show off why this controller is so great, that's going to do its job.
Yeah, I feel like the Stadia controller, I think the only other controller that it's trying to go up against is the Microsoft, the Xbox Elite controller. Do you remember this thing? And the whole point of the Elite controller was they were going to work on the hand feel of it. They were going to work on its responses and stuff like this. You were going to be able to use it on everything. It wasn't just for your Xbox. It was also something that was going to be able to be used for your PC. And I talk about this as if it's in the past. It is still out there, and it is still a gold standard for a lot of people for their PC gaming as well as their Xbox gaming and stuff like that. And I feel like that is what Google is taking aim at with the Stadia controller. So I was curious how you felt about it compared to a PlayStation controller, because I've been playing on the PS4 and it's I'd say it's night and day, but what I mean by that is apples to oranges, really, is because I think you kind of said this too, is that it really kind of comes down to what I want to play, because on the PlayStation, when I'm playing Borderlands, that PlayStation controller just feels so good, and part of that is muscle memory, part of that is just personal preference, right? But it just feels right for that kind of game. Whereas on the Stadia, I've been playing a lot more smaller games like Celeste and Little Nightmares and things like that, and so the controller for that feels really, really good because of the way that is set up. So it really comes down to what I'm playing and how. But the other component to the Stadia that I have to give huge props to is I cannot believe the quality of streaming that I'm getting out of it. And that comes down to the 4K Chromecast. Just it is a hell of a little machine, man. I think in this house, it is probably the best streaming device that I have seen so far. We've got a couple of other Chromecasts, but they're not the 4K Ultras. I've got, all of my computers and my PlayStation and both of them, even including the Pro. And when I have to do any type of streaming gaming on the PlayStations, or even to that point, some of the streaming apps, like the YouTube app and stuff like that, are kind of not doing it for me now, like lately. And the other thing to keep in mind is I'm entirely wireless. I don't have anything hardwired in this house. We just can't. And there's this, so the Stadia seems to have this ability, and the 4K Chromecast seems to have this ability to just be just butter. Like, it is smooth as hell, and it comes in quick, and like there's no moment of like pop in, like you don't have to wait for it to catch up. It's just ready to go. It is clearly still streaming. Like there is like an element of fuzziness to it that if I just downloaded a game, I wouldn't see. But it is so minuscule that it almost feels like it's part of the art style on a lot of the games that I've been playing.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. Unfortunately, I've never actually set up that Chromecast. That's not true. I did it the first day, but there was all this talk about the original ones coming out overheating, and I didn't want to mess with that, so I've been doing a lot of it via my PC. But like on a computer, and I am wired on the computer that I'm using it, it's so smooth and it is so crisp. And the fact that I can go from like the computer that I game on to like older computers and not notice much of a difference because everything is being handled on their end, on their server, and right. I'm just seeing it displayed on my monitor. Like, it's beautiful. And you talk about as a proof of concept, we're seeing that. We're seeing that with xCloud being a viable option offered from Xbox. And it'd be hard to believe that they didn't license out or borrow or use some of the patents that Google had to have put in place for Stadia. Ditto, Nintendo Switch, they got Control, and that's all cloud gaming. Yeah. Control is the same as Stadia, but it's on the Nintendo Switch, so it has a name that people understand behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be one of those things that Google is going to use this opportunity to just kind of the opportunity of the Stadia to just kind of get out into the world what they're capable of, and then if it succeeds, it succeeds, right? And I feel like a good example of that is the Google phone plan stuff, and the fact that they created these phone plans early on, and they let you attach it to certain phones, like in Android phones, you could get anything in Google. Now Google has the Pixel, and the Pixel has only come along because they did so well, proving that they could do stuff with phones, that they were able to break into the market and make their own phone, right? And so like the Stadia feels like it's jumping the gun a little bit because they introduced it right alongside their streaming gaming service, but obviously like I feel like it kind of you had to, like the controller had to be introduced in order for this to work. So it's not a matter of like when this succeeds, it's just for how long it succeeds, and the Google will be happy because then they're going to have, as you mentioned, all of these patents on things. They're going to have proof of concept out there. They're going to be able to point to and say, look, people are really happy about A, B, and C, like let's stick with that. And there's going to be so much power behind them now, like so much like evidence behind them, that it's going to be hard to ignore them in the streaming service going forward. And I think that was the plan all along. So like you were asking, like, I don't know why they're giving out these free Stadias, but here is one. And I was like, well, they're giving them out because they want people to be talking about it just like this. And like, it was kind of a really smart move on their part. Like, find these people that you've already gotten a bunch of nonsense money from because of the YouTube premium stuff, and like give them a free Stadia this year for Christmas. Like it cost them probably almost nothing. And now here I am talking about it, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
You're not wrong about that. And the real thing is, right, because this is almost the year anniversary of the Stadia as we're recording and releasing this episode. For at least the first 6 months that I had for free, right, by buying a Founders Pack, I got 6 months Pro for free. I felt like a beta tester in so many ways. So the fact that they beta tested, they listened to people, and now they've had 6 more months after that to be like, all right, now we have this thing that we think will appeal to people. Let's get it in the hands of users who are already in our ecosystem, makes a ton of sense. And also, you have Amazon who's coming out with their Luna system. Because they want to get involved with this thing that NVIDIA is doing, xCloud. Nintendo has cloud gaming now. So it is a future, and it's something that people want to stake their claim to early so that they're not playing catch up later.
Yeah. Sorry, Randy.
It's all right. It's completely fine.
I'm so excited about the Stadia. I'm just knocking everything over. Yeah, man, it's been a blast to have it in the house. Now, like, obviously, you know, keep in mind, and I've mentioned this, I got it for free. So like, there's a huge hurdle just removed for me in the fact that I didn't have to spend $100 on this Premiere kit that came with the 4K Chromecast and the controller, right? I got the first month of Stadia free. I'm gonna have to start paying soon, but right now it's just $10 a month. At least that's what I was led to believe.
Yes, that is. I mean, yeah, like I said,
yeah.
and I'm gonna. You know, we're getting close to November 30th, so I'm going to become a Stadia Pro member again to get the November games and the December games. And if you're still a Pro member at that time, we'll really get to put it through its paces as people who game together.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll have to find some multiplayer stuff and see what happens.
I mean, also, I want to recommend to you, I don't know if it's included still with the Pro, but if you haven't played Guilt yet.
Oh, yes. Actually, I haven't finished it. Just kind of kicked it on and we got into the school, and it's a creepy ass game.
Guilt is incredible. I had so much fun playing Guilt.
Cool.
And like it's not a system seller, right? Like that's the thing. Like that's the only real Stadia exclusive that comes to mind still.
Yeah. The Stadia, I think that to its credit, it is a true machine for indie games. To its curse, like it is a game that really shines with indie games. Like it's really hard to mention any one game that they've got and say, hey, this is the reason to get it. I will say this: if you get Stadia and get your month right now, they have all 4 of the SteamWorld games up, so you can get SteamWorld Dig, SteamWorld Dig 2, SteamWorld Quest, and SteamWorld Heist, and play all of them. And that is awesome. I can't tell you how ecstatic I was that I'm finally getting to play SteamWorld Quest, because like I've touched it on the, but it was a Switch exclusive up until the Stadia, or I guess you can get it on PC. But there was this supposedly game-breaking bug that I think Zach got, that like you hit like a quest point and a save point, and if you fuck something up, like you couldn't get back, like, and it was real bad. And so like I was scared to even spend like $7 on it when it went on sale a couple of months ago, but now I got it for free and I've got it on a different system than the Switch. So like I feel like I probably won't get that bug, and on top of that, if I do, I didn't pay nothing for it, so it's okay.
Is Monster Boy
Monster Boy
is still up there? That game's great too.
Monster Boy was up there. It was on sale. It was no longer free, but it was on sale for like $3. So like,
I mean, I got that. I have that. I've beaten that game on Switch. I've beaten that game on PC, and I've beaten that game on PlayStation. That's such a good game.
You know what I'm playing again on the Stadia? The Stadia has me playing Hotline Miami again.
I believe that. Yeah, like that's the type of stuff that thrives on the Stadia.
Man, so weird games. Loved them though.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I got Stadia. I've been dicking around with it, and I am thoroughly impressed. I have to say, it still is not the kind of thing that I think is gonna, like, you know, Google is not going to become the next like Microsoft in creating the Xbox, right? Like I just don't think that's going to happen. But at the same time, I don't think that's what they want to do anyway. So
I think they understand their market. I think that right now we're living in a time that is fucking crazy. I'm just gonna rip off the fucking Band-Aid. What we have seen with the release of the Xbox Series XS systems and the PlayStation 5 is that gaming is a major form of entertainment. And the fact that people cannot get these systems people are angry at the fact that there are no PS5s anywhere. The amount of reporting that I've seen that are people like kind of just sour grapes on the internet because they can't get one is crazy. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be upset if you were unable to get a PlayStation 5. I'm saying I cannot believe that is viable content to create. That I am seeing videos with hundreds of thousands of views that are a content creator complaining for 15 minutes that they weren't able to get one, and they feel like they need one to do their job. Like,
I think that there's So like in the past, we've had these moments where video games were brought up in the news, things like the Pokemon explosion or Halo 3 passing the billion-dollar mark. 4? I'm not trying to remember which one it was. It
I
wasn't
don't
4.
know.
It was one of the originals.
Halo
But
2 was the one that blew me away. That was what, like, one
yeah,
of those moments where I'm like, oh shit,
where
other people play video games.
right. Well, the first time that a video game passed $1 billion, and it was one of the early Halos. I'm going to say 2 for right now, but people can
Well, I mean,
correct me on
based
that.
on what the Midland Mall, I just called it the
Yeah.
Midland Mall, the Rhode
Yes.
Island Mall looked like on
Yeah.
release day for Halo 2,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right. So like
Like,
those threshold moments were important enough for the news to be talking about them. And at the time, gamers rejoiced. They were like, look at like we're being, this is legitimizing us. This is legitimizing us. But it would always be like that one thing, and then it wouldn't come back for a while. You know, the thing that stuck around more than anything was always the Grand Theft Auto lawsuits and shit like that. Like that's the stuff that really stuck around for video games. But now we're seeing a lot more about people talking about wanting these games. You know, we're seeing like 5 years ago, like you started to see it where like the creators of No Man's Sky did the fucking late night circuit to show off their game to Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon, right? And like there's this idea that like the news stories that we are now talking about with video games are much more like the cultural impact of them, not so much just the like hey, it's real weird that this kid's toy sold $1 billion, isn't it? And it's like, fuck you, man. For anybody paying attention, it's not. And like here we are, like finally, like this is what legitimacy looks like, is the idea that like you can have these news conversations and it's not like a them kids like expose, right?
yeah. I mean, like, John Oliver made a PlayStation 5 joke when the big reveal of the system came out. And then, like, but Bill Maher in his finale, his season 18 finale, did a joke about the PlayStation 5. And I'm like, that's Bill Maher joking about the PlayStation 5. That kind of blew my mind. But then this morning on the CBS morning show, they had a, like, for real segment about how to get a PlayStation 5, like what you should be doing, sites that you can go to. And I'm like, this is CBS. CBS has a market, and its market is older people, right?
Yep.
Blue Bloods, everybody loves that guy, Tom Selleck. I couldn't think of his name. They love Tom Selleck. No, it just hit it.
Wahlberg? All right.
but yeah, like CBS has a specific demographic. And when it's CBS, like at 6 a.m, doing a segment about how to get a PlayStation 5, like that was really strange to me. Not in a bad way, but just in a way of like, I didn't realize the cultural impact that this was actually having.
I mean, it came from a lot of different places, but you know, the big one, especially pointing to something like CBS and talking about their demographics being interested in it, a lot of this credit really needs to go to things like the Wii. Like the Nintendo Wii really kind of made gaming a family like entertainment option. It was no longer something the kids did in the other room. You know what I mean? Like it was no longer something that like your teen had one in his bedroom. It became one that was in the living room. The Wii really moved the gaming system back into the living room, and that can't be ignored. Like, and it's part of the reason why you get so many people out there that no matter what Nintendo does, they'll back them. A Wii U can come out and like Nintendo falls on its face, but then the Switch comes out and then they bounce right back. And the reason they bounce right back is because people know that eventually they're going to do something that's going to be meaningful and impactful for the whole industry. And like, so we just, we've been giving all of this credit and props today to like the Xbox and the PS5 and even the Stadia, and like the Nintendo like Switch cannot be ignored in this day and age either.
Right. But that's what I was turning back into, is that one of the reasons that the Wii had such great market like permanence and permeation is because it was affordable. So you look at the PS5, you look at the Xbox Series. I still don't know how I'm supposed to talk about
Nobody
these
does.
things.
Nobody does.
And first of all, nobody's really talking about them either. Like, the other thing about that CBS thing is that it was specifically how to get a PS5, not how to get an Xbox Series S or X.
Yeah.
which says something. Maybe releasing a game without a launch exclusive, not the best way to go, Microsoft. yeah, so
backwards compatibility stuff
backwards
is what they were
compatibility
hoping to
is
lean on,
good,
and
but
that's not a bad. Yeah, I know.
But until you
Yeah.
have a system seller, you're not really going to sell systems. Well, that's Devon Decker being that guy. But that situation, there is a room in this market for people who still want to just throw down $100 and get a gaming system. And that's where things like Amazon Luna and specifically Google Stadia can thrive.
Yeah.
And that's the part of the market that they're trying to take possession of, because it's something that you're going to have no problem slotting into your entertainment system because you probably already have a Fire Stick or a Chromecast. So you pay this $100 as opposed to the $500 that these main systems cost, and you're playing games on your TV with a lot less stress than is common if you're getting one of the ninth gen systems.
I mean, it warms my cockles because as somebody that really kind of feared and was down on the idea of the loss of the AA game, right? Like the B tier game, like it was really kind of a bummer that like either it was all or nothing. We really hit a dark period where games either had to cost $10 million to make and they were AAA titles that if they didn't make it, then everybody involved was basically going to lose their livelihood, or they were these $10 indie games on Steam and like these guys were dedicating their lives to it, and if they didn't make it, they were going to lose their livelihood, right? Like there was no chance for like that game in the middle where like sometimes guys just need to get some work, and also like those games ended up being kind of weirdly beloved in a lot of places. Like we just lost that for about 10 years in there, right? And it's good to see somebody has come back and picked up that area of the market, that idea that like, look, there's people out there that want a game, they want a game in their hands, they don't always want to drop $300 on a system, they don't always want to drop $60 on a game, like they just need something that is going to entertain them for a bit, especially nowadays, right? In as we said earlier, the COVID times and all that, like it's just nice that the market is doing that, you know, like it's not every day we get a win in a capitalistic society like that.
Right. And, you know, we talk a lot about River City Girls. I talk a lot about River City Girls on this show. Mm-hmm. Way Forward, as a developer, they really sit in that sweet spot. And that's why you're seeing a lot of their games. They've kind of partnered with Amazon. So if you get Amazon Luna, you kind of get their modern releases like River City Girls. And I believe The Mummy Demastered, which... Nice. Is something that I spent all weekend playing because I've owned The Mummy Demastered since The Mummy came out, because I fucking loved The Mummy.
You know that fucking the guys that put out the physical release of
Limited Run Games.
Limited Run did a limited run of Mummy Demastered that came in an old school Super Nintendo box.
Yeah. It ended yesterday.
I know.
Well, and one of the reasons why I was forcing myself to play through it this weekend is I'm like, if I can get the Platinum Trophy this weekend, then I'll pre-order this. But yeah. I'm really wrestling with something. I don't want to buy things I'm not going to use anymore. I've kind of
Devin's growing up.
Yeah, it's because of COVID, right? Like every rain cloud has a silver lining.
Yeah.
Exit stage right, even. Because this in COVID, right? Let's just talk about it. I've bought 2 Switch Lites and a 2DS, and they're still in their boxes, and I don't really have any desire to open them. Like, it's like I bought them for the collectible of it all.
Yeah.
And I can't be doing that. And, I mean, like, Streets of Rage 4, which I got from Limited Run Games, I have, and it's on display, but it's still in the plastic, because I don't want to open it. I don't want to devalue it. Ditto, Limited Run Games also did River City Girls releases for PlayStation 4 and Switch, and I bought 2 of each, so that I could keep them in the shrink wrap. Because, someday they're going to be worth something. I can't do that anymore. And the fact that I spent all weekend playing The Mummy, I didn't get the Platinum, and I'm pissed about it, because you have to do it without dying, and I died 1 time. Sorry, I don't need to flex these demons here. It's just the truth. I'm like, I already have this game. I'm not going to spend the money to get a Super Nintendo box that has a faux cartridge in it and then just have it on my shelf. I can't do that anymore. And I mean, you're
Yeah,
not wrong. Like it does. It feels like growing up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and like I've done a couple of things through Mondo over the years. Like I got like the Luke Cage soundtrack, and I was just gifted for my birthday the Bastion soundtrack and stuff on vinyl. And I am very picky about when I pick up vinyl because I want it to be something special and worth, worth the money, because usually they're like $30 or so. But on top of that, I want it to also be something I am actually going to listen to. I don't want to get this thing and then never open the plastic. Like, and I know for some people out there, like some collectors out there, the idea of getting the Luke Cage soundtrack on vinyl and never opening it is the ideal. But like, that ain't me. Like I'm gonna work to spend this money to save this money. I'm gonna spend this money. I'm gonna get this thing and I'm gonna display it in my house. Like, it's out there for people to see, but it's also out there for me to remember that I've got, so that I can put it down every now and then. Because like it's much more meaningful to me that way. And part of that is because I didn't really grow up in a collector house. Like, my parents, if they have antiques in the house, they haven't told me. Maybe that says something. But but like. But we didn't really do that in our house. If we bought a movie, we watched it usually that night that we bought it, right? Like, we didn't ever spend the money on anything that we didn't intend to eventually use. And so I just don't have that. I just don't have that in me, you know. The closest I've ever gotten is comic books, and there have been certain comic books where I would go and buy 2 issues, but that legitimately came down to the fact that, like, comic books can get expensive, but they don't have to be. So like Deadpool, I read through the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is the crossover with Cap and Wolverine, where you find out that Deadpool has been getting harvested for parts for like some South Korean Mutant X program. It's crazy. It's like it's one of my favorite Deadpool stories ever. Not least because it also includes Cap and Wolverine. But so I loved it. I bought it issue by issue. I loved it. And then like I kind of made it a mission to go out and find uncracked copies of it. Like I found it like boarded in stores, and I got the full 5 issues boarded in stores. Now, by the time I bought them, they were a little bit more expensive. I think the most expensive one was $5, but I think altogether I only spent like $20 on just rebuying that series. And like, that's $20. It's a lot to some people, but at my point in my life, it wasn't much. So I was like, this is totally worth it. And like, that was a decision that I made. But like, that's like the one thing in my life I can point to that I really went out of my way to find a thing that I was then not going to open. Other than that, like, I'll buy a thing and I'll use it,
Well, like I'm happy that I had 2 copies of the first 3 issues of Spider-Man and the Black Cat, because it made it real easy to be, hey, Kevin Smith signed these when we met Kevin Smith in 2006. Whereas if it had been the ones I read, like I don't know if I wanted to, then these are now display pieces. Yeah. But I mean, the real thing that's getting me thinking about this, right, is that copy of Super Mario Brothers 3 that sold for like $145,000 over the weekend. Now the most expensive sale of like video game related merchandise ever.
Yeah.
And so then all the ones that were the same thing, but not with the Left brothers, right? Like if you read about it, like what made that unique is insane. Like it's one of 3 that exist in the world.
Yeah.
And then its value is because it's never been used and will never be used. Like, you get thinking about that stuff and it's like, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to hold on to this stuff because it might be valuable someday. And then the further question is, that's only if I sell it. It's only valuable if I sell it.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I'm sorry. I can't help but think about, I'm trying to think of what it is. I think it might be the Wu-Tang album that is supposed to not be listened to. And then Martin Shkreli, I believe, was the one that got a hold of it. I may be mixing up stories here, but essentially, like, I'm gonna just stick to my guns. It was a Wu-Tang album that was created by the group, and then like sealed up and put on a shelf, and they basically, like, every so often it shows up in auctions and people will sell it off, but like when you buy it, you basically sign like an NDA, like, and like you promise that you're not gonna like listen to it and you're not gonna let anybody else listen to it, and like that has just gone on in perpetuity. And then if this is the same story, then that dude Martin Shkreli that everybody now hates got a hold of it, and he was basically like, I'm gonna put it out. I mean, I bought it, I own it, I'm gonna put it out. And they like sued him to make sure that it didn't happen and all this stuff. And I just think of like the insanity of that, but like on a weird level, like it's kind of the point of the art piece is to kind of push that narrative and that idea of ownership and licensing in music. Like that needs to be a conversation. So like having that in the world doesn't piss me off, but something about the stuff that happened with the video game with the Super Mario Brothers stuff this weekend really kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Dude, like, because then I was watching, and a 9.4 graded, same grade, but with the brothers on the right, it had been listed, still ridiculous, for $15,000, and they bumped it up to $40,000. Like, the same listing, they delisted it, and then the same seller put it up at a 3-time markup, because now there's value associated with it, because this other one sold. And it's just, that's nutso to me. Yeah. And I can't, and I've been part of that world for so long that I know I need to shy away from it. So like I lay in bed last night and like I could pre-order the Mummy, I could do it, and then I'd have it. And the other thing is that it's a universal licensed game. Mm-hmm. And like we've seen what happened to Scott Pilgrim. So it's part of that, like, maybe I want a physical copy in case it stops working sometime down the line.
Scott Pilgrim getting a physical release too from a limited run. If I'm
I don't know that it's been confirmed. I wouldn't be surprised, but I know that they wanted to do a limited. It wouldn't surprise me because Scott Pilgrim is another Way Forward game, and Way Forward is very much in bed with limited run games in terms of getting their stuff published. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least. But they haven't confirmed it. They said that they're going to try to do a physical release, and that's one that I would get. And I know that. But ideally, I would get it as my only copy. Like, my issue with River City Girls is I can buy it digital and play it now, and I've played to death, right? I can't play any more River City Girls. It's done. I mean, I'll play it again at some point. But I had a digital copy.
This episode is all about various ways in which you're slowly killing yourself.
It sounds that way, yeah. And then I still have something that I do want to touch on before we run away. But so I bought the digital, played it to that, and then like the limited run one came, and I'm like, I'm not gonna open this. I can play it digitally, so like I'll keep it sealed. And like I don't know, it's strange, and it's something that I'm learning about myself, and I'm trying to get better.
Yeah.
And I just want to put that out there, that I am trying to get better. Because maybe you can keep me on the straight and narrow, Sejohn. Also,
Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, by the way, that is the name of the Wu-Tang album. I was completely right. Nice. It is not to be listened to. Oh, I should put this the right way. It is not to be commercially exploited until 2103. So if you own it, you can listen to it, and I think that means you can probably play it for like friends at your house. Like you can have a listening party for it, but you cannot commercially exploit it until the year 2103. Yeah.
Cool. That's incredible. I don't know how I didn't know about that. Yeah. So also, just to go back to the Stadia and the DualSense controllers, what I think really makes them work is that they're thicker in the hand area so that your hand naturally fits around it and it fits in your hand better. Like looking at the DualShock 4, I have one right next to me. Like it's those thin little sticks on the sides, and like that's where my hands get fatigued.
Yeah.
Because I have to grip it. Like it doesn't just sit in my palms.
Yeah, I know that I've had that issue with the Buffalo controller many times as we've like sat around and played like Link to the Past and done like 2-hour blocks where we're just gonna play through, and like my big old man hands can't handle the SNES controller anymore, and I feel weird about that. But yeah, they start to get a little achy.
So you should get, just while we're talking about it, you should get a SM30 Pro by 8-Bit Dough if we're gonna do more Link to the Past stuff.
Good to know.
Because it's the exact same layout as a Buffalo, but it has the 2 paddles that go down. So you get some
a Christmas present.
Yeah. And plus you can also plug it in. Don't use it wirelessly, plug it in.
Yeah, I don't tend to ever use anything wirelessly. If the PlayStation 4 was really the first thing that really drove me to play wireless controlling, because even with the PS3, I never really never really dug it. Like my controller would die halfway through something, and I'd be in a terrible spot, and I was like, no, I'm gonna be wired. Um, but yeah, man, I think the only other controller that I've ever really like felt like jazzed about was the Switch Pro controller, really. And even then, it was I never wanted to buy myself one. I had friends that had them, and so like it was great to be able to play that when I went over their house. But it never got me good enough that I felt I needed to buy one until the Joy-Con drift issue. In which case, I went out and I bought basically the Mad Catz version. I forget what the company is that makes
I think it's Power A that does the
like
one
that.
that's like
They're
it's
licensed by Nintendo. Yeah, and they're really nice, and I do love it. But like, it also was only $30, so like, it was super cheap, and it had a cool Pikachu graphic on it. So like, I was like, yeah, I'm sold. Even if this thing is only half as good as the Pro controller, I love it, and I do love it. I
gotta tell you, I am tearing my Pro controller apart playing Super Mario 35. Like, I have noticed like there is flex to it now from how I play it, and I need to look into one of those because if I'm going to be playing Super Mario 35 till it goes away,
no rumble on the Power A.
I don't really care about that. That rumble is nice, and I think going forward as we make it adaptive and see what we can do with rumble, it will be meaningful for certain games. I don't Super Mario 35. I don't know if I even really noticed the rumble. I mean, occasionally you can use the NES controllers, that Joy-Con slip in to play that game, and there's no rumble on those. And also, I'll occasionally use a Pokken controller as well.
Yeah, no, the biggest complaint I have seen about the Power A, and I don't even share this because it's not my life experience, but the rumble is something that is really important to the I don't know how else to put this, disabled gamer community. Like, I don't know what they prefer to call themselves, but a lot of people with disabilities who rely on things like rumble because like they can't process the image as well, whether that's because of things just like color blindness or just like they have an attention disorder, so they're like not necessarily able to pick up on like small changes on screen and stuff like that. The rumble becomes super important to that community. And so really the only legitimate like complaint that I've heard levied against the Power A is that it's a little able centric in that it doesn't have things like the rumble to help in those instances. And like I said, that's not even something that I necessarily deal with in my life. So I'm fortunate enough to not have to think about that, and I wouldn't have thought about that if it hadn't been for me just kind of reading up on like reviews trying to figure out if it was worth buying one or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of like Switch, because like I said, like going forward, rumble I think will be a meaningful part of gaming. But the Switch, like they use it as that gimmicky way that we see Nintendo use it. I ran into that problem with Luigi's Mansion 3. I was playing it handheld, but I have like the Hori controllers, so it fits my adult hands when I'm playing it. Yeah. And it doesn't have rumble, and that's sort of required if you're going to hunt for booze. And then hunting for booze is a required part of progressing in the game. Yeah. So I'm like, I'll play it on a screen, and I haven't done that.
I was real worried because there's a couple of tools that you can get in Paper Mario that require it, and that game is all about doing stuff like side quests. Like the main quest, you don't need shit for it, but you do gain a couple of powers in the side quests that the rumble is supposed to be a big part of it, and I was really worried that I wouldn't be able to use those features. And then luckily, Hannah was playing along with me one day, and she pointed out, she's like, well, there's a visual cue too. So I guess I do kind of miss that visual cue. Like the rumble would have been the thing. But she's like, look, there's a slight visual cue on this tool that it'll blink in just the right way when you're in the right spot. And I was like, oh shit. Not nearly as easy as the rumble growing as you get closer, but at least it's there. But yeah, I think that's the only real issue I have with the Power A. But that aside, like, it's a great controller. But man, the Stadia controller just feels so good in my hands.
Excellent. I'm glad. All right, so now I do want to steer back to something that we touched on briefly earlier. And Sejohn, you're gonna feel attacked. I know that the things that I'm about to talk about, you're gonna feel attacked. But I don't mean to attack you. This is just like
this is a safe space
preamble of that. Okay. And what we were talking about was schedules when we were kids because of advertising and weird things like this show is going to start at 4:23 instead of 4:30 and all of that stuff. Yep. And did you know that DuckTales is currently in its 3rd season?
I did know that. Yeah, I've actually started rewatching it. I just got back to the Moon episodes where but anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so have you seen any episodes of season 3?
No, I have not gotten into season 3 because we never finished 2, so we're
Okay,
rewatching 2 so that we can finish it and get into 3.
excellent. So one of the big things that happened in season 3 was the Darkwing Duck. I guess I'd call it like a pilot, like a backdoor pilot episode. Let's Get Dangerous happened, and a lot of the people saw that, and it was their first exposure to the DuckTales series, which we've been talking about since the beginning. Hi, Glomgold, how are you? But the reason that they saw that was because Disney put that one up for free on YouTube, so you could just watch that episode without any sort of preamble. And the problem that I've had these conversations with people, they're like, I really liked that. I wish I knew when the show was on. And that gets under my skin in a way, Sejohn, that I want to talk about a little bit.
Let's do it. Let's talk about it.
My schedule since DuckTales season 3 started back up again, because they did 7 episodes in the beginning of 2020, and then they've done, about 8 more with the back end of 2020, beginning in October.
Yep.
Is I record the show with you, I go eat something, and then I watch the DuckTales episode that aired at 7:30 while we were recording. It's actually at 7. It's 7 o'clock on Monday nights that it airs on Disney XD. It's not even on the regular Disney Channel. It's on their Extreme Disney Channel. Wait, remember? I don't know why Extreme starts with an X to 90s kids, but it does, and whatever.
Always will.
Yeah, it always will. MXC, baby. Most Extreme Challenge. No, it should be MEC, whatever. And all these people who are like, I would love to watch DuckTales, but I don't know when it's on. Like, so I guess it's not a strike on you because you're watching it how you can watch it. It's on Disney Plus. If you have Disney Plus and you're interested, there's 2 full seasons up, and they're awesome. The first 2 seasons of DuckTales are awesome.
Great Christmas episode.
Oh, God. And I'm excited for another Christmas episode that's supposed to tie into that one.
Oh, that's awesome.
In 2 weeks. But it's this thing where, I mean, I don't want to come across gatekeepy. Like, I want to make sure that, like, that's not it. But if you really care about something, I feel like it's not super hard to try to keep up with it in 2020. Like, not even just 2020. Like, in the time we live in.
Man, I don't know. I think a good rule to live by is never presume somebody else's situation. Like, there's a lot of people out there that just that don't know that you can just like go to probably DisneyXD.com. Look, I don't even know the website, but I'm assuming there's one. But like, and figure this shit out. And also, we live in an era now where time is not the factor, right? Like I don't know when it's on. Really what that means is I don't know when it's up on my streaming service. And part of that is on Disney. They're not very good at posting like, hey, new episodes of this or this thing is up. Like, the big stuff is up there, or the stuff they want you to pay extra for, like Mulan, is up there, right? Like that kind of shit is front and center on that app. But it's not very friendly to the viewer who uses it as their only source of watching, right? Like, it's very much geared towards being a supplemental material to you also already watching Disney Channel and Disney XD. Like, a lot of the stuff that is on there, it's assumed you know what you're looking for. And I pointed out when it first came out. You can go to a Pixar collection and they'll have 90% of their movies listed there, or 90% of their like specials that are listed there, but there will actually be 1 or 2 things that aren't actually listed. You have to type them in and look for them, and if you don't type them in and look for them, I don't know where else they are, and that happens all over that app. When I first wanted to watch DuckTales, it was giving me the DuckTales movie, and it was giving me the old DuckTales, and it was giving me a like DuckTales shorts option that they had. It wasn't until I typed in DuckTales that it showed new DuckTales. Like, how fucking ridiculous is that?
It's crazy. And I think a part of it is that it's Disney's DuckTales. So if you're going through the list, that shows up in the DIs, but you're going to move through that to the DUs.
But some of that is it's just not there.
Yeah,
like,
no, I know you're not wrong.
It really is just not listed.
I've also come up against that problem where This one is considered Disney's DuckTales, so it's under DI, where the person who's looking for DuckTales, if they're scrolling through, is going to go to DU. Like, that's not the best example, because you're not wrong. When I was looking for DuckTales 2017, when I got Disney Plus a year ago, because we're at the year anniversary of Disney Plus too, like, it bummed me out that it wasn't there when I went to browse through. And then when I saw the people talking online that it is there, you just need to search for it, it made me scratch my head. And it's still a problem that I'm having with Disney Plus. I also have a real issue with the fact that only 3 seasons of Recess are up there. Like, I want all 6 seasons of Recess. 6 seasons in a movie is Recess. I want the other
one of the
3
seasons like 50 episodes though. That's also part of the problem, is that it might be that there's at least 4 seasons up. It's just, I think one is slammed together.
Yeah, I know. It's
weird.
Yeah. Well, what I really hate is if you look at the old Disney Afternoon stuff, they start with the syndicated episodes. So if you want to actually watch the pilot, you have to scroll through and find it.
Yeah, you got to dig through until you can find the 6-episode pilot to Tailspin or whatever it was.
Yeah. And even then, it's also the broadcast version. It's not the movie that featured the songs, which bums me out, because I really like those songs in the Tailspin movie. But I'm crazy. I'm Devon Decker. I'm crazy. I know that.
I mean, we're here, and we should do something really quick, Dev.
Yeah.
We owe it.
Oh my God, what is happening?
Devon, when the road looks rough ahead, and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed, you just remember what your old pad said. Boy, you've got a friend in me, Dev.
Aww.
Do you know what just passed this weekend?
Toy Story anniversary?
25th anniversary on November 22nd, yesterday.
Yeah.
We passed the 25th anniversary of the very first Pixar film. And as we're sitting here in this Disney soup, it'd be remiss to not point that out.
That's good, but I'm ending with some Disney garbage. I'm just going to be honest with you, because something came to my attention tomorrow that I'm like, I need to talk about this on the show. I almost called you to be like, we're talking about this tomorrow, and then I'm like, no, I'm just going to spring it on him.
Yeah, well, let's have a little bit of fun with Disney.
No, let's talk about Toy Story then.
But yeah, man, I like 25 years. Like, how friggin' crazy is it to think that like basically, I didn't realize Pixar could drink yet, like that sort of thing. You know what I mean? They set off a revolution in animation. I mean, without Pixar, you wouldn't have really seen the advancements in CGI movies from like Nickelodeon, and then eventually even Disney getting back on the game on its own. Like, fine, Pixar, you don't want to make our Cars movies, we'll make planes. Like, you really, there's a lot that has happened over the last 25 years in the movie world, in the animation movie world, and a lot of that is on the shoulders of Pixar. And just wanted to just say thank you.
Yeah, and also, if we're thanking Pixar, just because it's us, just because it's the Say Report, we also need to thank Howard the Duck for failing so greatly that they had to sell off parts of Apple, and that's where Pixar came from.
Yeah, literally, George Lucas had to sell off parts of his computer, basically, firm.
Yeah.
And that was what eventually became like parts of like Apple, that then became parts of Pixar, that then became what we know as the fucking powerhouse movie company. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So thank you also to Howard the Duck for Toy Story. I wish that there was a better duck character in the Toy Story films as like a shout out. But I also understand why, no, we don't want to touch ducks anymore.
We don't movies. Talk about Howard the Duck.
We do, but other people, they don't.
No,
I really loved, as we're like, I mean, the next movie that we're watching in our Marvel rewatch is Infinity War. I'm so excited. But when we started it 17 weeks ago, my father, thinking that he was funny, was like, so do we start with Howard the Duck? And I'm like, yeah, we could do that. And he's like, no, I don't ever want to watch that movie again. but like, he's like trying to like flex and be like, I know Marvel movies. That was a good moment. But yeah, that is crazy. I guess what's really crazy about Toy Story is that I saw that in theaters, And then I didn't see a Pixar movie in theater again until Monsters Incorporated. And then it wasn't that until you brought me to see Ratatouille. So, like, also, big part of our friendship. Because if you hadn't brought me to Ratatouille, I wouldn't have been like, oh, I gotta see Wall-E. Oh, I gotta see Up. Because Ratatouille really was like, no, these are good movies. Because, like, Finding Nemo, I mean, I'm sure I've said it here, but, like, everybody I talked to about Finding Nemo was, yeah, it's slow, but if you watch it baked, you'll love it. And I'm like, cool. I'm not going to watch Finding Nemo high.
I don't need to cry ugly, ugly high tears. Thank you. Yeah, man. I mean, we've done this dance before. We know that Pixar was never truly your jam. Whereas for like me, it is like definitive in my movie watching. Like it literally defines what the gold standard of animation for me. And that starts with all the way back with Toy Story. I mean, that's the thing that I think really is crazy to me, is to think that this was a movie from 25 years ago, and it instantly like had me as like, oh, this is it, this is the animation that I want to see going forward, you know. And so when Disney started doing their own movies that way, I was one of the few people that seemed very excited about that, at least in my circles. Everybody around me was like, oh, they're getting away from hand-drawn animation, and I was like, do y'all see Home on the Range? Because they don't deserve it.
Don't be mean to Home on the Range. It knows what it did. And it pays for it every day.
Should I have shit on Brother Bear instead? I've done that in the past and gotten called out too.
We shit on Brother Bear all the time. You know why I shit on Brother Bear? For Brother Bear 2. Brother Bear 2 bothers the fuck out of me. Because it falls into that realm of films where a person becomes an animal. I mean, Brother Bear does it too. But Brother Bear 2 does it as well, where I'll just stay as an animal. And it's like,
yeah.
Oh, okay, we could turn you back. No, I'm going to stay an animal.
No, I'm just going to stay this way now. Yeah, I much prefer Brother Bear 4 when they go to space, breaking the sound barrier.
That was good. That was really good. I wish that were real. And also that there's a leprechaun chasing them in that one. Because the fourth movie's in space, man. Let's just mash them all together. But no, I remember Brother Bear 2, like, I watched it, and then when, like, Mandy Moore's Inuit character, which, like, there were problems. Let's just acknowledge that there were problems.
About that world. Defend Brother Bear to me again, I dare you.
And she's like, her whole thing is that she's looking for the guy who decided to become a bear at the end of Brother Bear. And then she gets turned into a lady bear. And then she's like, yeah, I'll stay a bear. We can get married and have a bear family. And I'm like, this is weird. It's real weird. Do you remember the MC Hammer cartoon? I hate you, Sejohn, because you got me talking about Hammer Man. You got me talking about Hammer Man.
I did not know that MC Hammer. I am going to officially say I have no friggin' clue what you're talking about. The MC Hammer cartoon.
Okay, so there's only 13 episodes. It was on NBC for that brief...
That's a full season. Clark's got less episodes. Anyway, go ahead.
That's true. No, but it's not like it's... Okay, but it's not like it's one of those ones that ran for 3 seasons. Like I found out Tripping the Rift had 3 seasons.
Man, I forget that thing had a show beyond the initial pornographic first cartoon.
Yeah, right? It's crazy. But yeah, so it's one of those situations that exists. But Hammerman was on NBC. It ran for 13 episodes, and in it, Stanley, using MC Hammer's real name, is a like caretaker at a community center, and there is a guy, I don't remember what his name was, but he had a pair of magic shoes, and he was Soul Man. That was his name. And he used the magic shoes to fight against crime and corruption in the world.
Please.
So now
It was SOLE. Please tell me it was SOLE.
No,
feed my troll.
I wish it was, but it's not.
No. Soul Man would have been such a good villain.
It might even be Soul Brother. It's like ridiculous, but it's like it's very much like an African American show. They're in Detroit and all this other stuff. And so him and his granddaughter, because he's getting too old, have set out on a journey across America to find the successor, and they find Stanley, that's MC Hammer, and they're like, wear these shoes, and when he puts them on, he becomes the Hammer Man. And he's MC Hammer, and he fights crime and corruption with magic shoes and music. And the shoes talk. That's the thing that always weirded me out, that the shoes are alive and talk to you.
Join us next week when Devon breaks down the odd mythology of the Creepy Crawlers TV show.
Oh my god, I love the Creepy Crawlers TV show. Oh, I'll go nuts on that. That had 2 seasons. But back to Hammerman.
We're still talking about Hammerman. I thought we were done with it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were just teasing in the middle of Hammerman. There is an episode of Hammerman where there's a spider-themed villain.
Uh-huh.
And
yes, I am legitimately enraptured with this conversation. I need you to know this.
Right.
Go ahead.
And he is a white dude. He's a wicked Chad frat bro before those were tropes, right? And he comes to the community center and he's like wicked macking on Stanley's girl. And she's mad at Stanley, so she's like allowing it to happen to like teach him that lesson of like, you should appreciate what you have, because I could be with this guy who's rich and wears the Letterman jacket and kind of looks like Freddy from Pup Named Scooby-Doo, like from the head up.
All right.
And then it's revealed later on that he's a spider dude. Like, he's not a Spider-Man, but like he's half spider, like purple skin and friggin' mandibles on his face and like 4 eyes. Though the 4 eyes may just be the Itsy Bitsy Spider cartoon getting conflated in my head. Remember the Itsy Bitsy Spider cartoon? Other USA stuff. I've gone down holes lately. So in this episode, that spider guy, he's trying to find a mate. And he gets Stanley's girlfriend, and he wraps her up in spider web, and he's like, in 3 hours, you'll be a spider person too, and then we can rule the world with our brood. And like, this is a kid's show that I watched. Like, and the whole theory, but it's one of those things that stuck with me because, like, going back to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which that's like a fart too, but it's a ghost of the future. One of the big things with Kevin and Pete was that they wanted it so that the turtles could never breed, so that like uniquely the only time that they have on the planet and the only chance they have to change the world is during their lifetimes. They won't have a legacy. They won't have offspring. Like, that was a thing that fueled early Ninja Turtle stories.
Yeah. Oh, man.
That's why no female turtles. That's why that, like, whole edict existed. Which is nuts, right? Because you don't really think about, like, Leonardo macking down and having a baby. I mean, I don't. I don't know what you do.
Can I break your heart?
Yeah.
Did you know that MC Hammer only played Hammerman for 3 episodes out of the 13?
Yes, I did know that.
Do you know who he gets replaced by, though?
Oh, is it Phil Lamar?
No.
Okay.
It's Clark Johnson. Phil Lamar probably did voices on the show, but
yeah.
It is Clark Johnson from, like, The Wire and a show that I legitimately loved, Alpha House. One of Amazon's first original TV shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the senator. Which state is he from? He's the African American senator that lives with them in the house. But Clark Johnson is a phenomenal actor, like badass on The Wire. But he played Hammerman in the last 10 episodes of the show after MC Hammer got bounced.
Well, it's not that MC Hammer got bounced. Is that he did that and then like he did interstitial stuff, sort of like Jackie Chan on Jackie Chan Adventures. But Jackie Chan was in all 5 seasons of Jackie Chan Adventures. That's a good show too. But yeah, so Hammerman, I have a DVD, not a DVD, I have a VHS of Hammerman, and there's like a mad scientist character, and when he laughs, he goes, chortle, chortle, chortle. Which like, is it this dude's first day freaking voice acting? Because I'm sure they wrote chortle in the script, thinking that he would just laugh. But he
just goes, that it was fucking Hammerman, so nobody corrected him.
Chortle.
Did Stanley show up to do the fucking bumps in and out? Fine, we're gonna get paid.
It's weird. It's just this weird thing, this show. But that's something that I think about, is that like I need to create a mate of a female of my species in order to propagate my species, is a thing that was introduced to me in an episode of Hammerman, a show that Sejohn didn't know about, which blows my mind. It blows my mind that wasn't something we could be kindred spirits about after everything else we've been kindred spirits about during this episode.
This is it. This is the thing that breaks us up, Devon. Fucking Hammerman.
You know what? You don't know Hammerman. I'm gone. I'll send for my things. Yeah, it's just one of those. And then that's like Brother Bear is like, oh, I really like Mandy Moore when she was a human, and now she's a bear, and I have all these complex feelings. And I'm like, this is a Disney film. What is happening?
I gotta be honest, man. I feel like it more comes from like Shrek, like 6 years earlier, and the thing is that Shrek does it right. The idea that like she doesn't choose to be an ogre in her life. That is like the idea is that is her true self. But I feel like that in that comparison, then Mandy Moore's character is like admitting that she has always been a furry. I've always felt like I was a bear on the inside.
Yeah, it's real strange. It's just one of those, and you're not wrong about Shrek, but then you also need to consider that Shrek is based on a book, like a children's book, and that whole story is that Fiona is this gross princess and they fall in love.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like,
but that's what I mean. Is Shrek does it right. Shrek earns its decision at the end, like quote unquote decision at the end for her to be with Shrek and to for her true self to be. Like, it does it well, whereas Brother Bear 2 is a poor example of that.
Yeah. Or Dog-o-matic. I can't talk about Dog-o-matic for longer than a minute. Timer's on. Dog-o-matic is one of those Wonderful World of Disney movies that was on Sunday nights. And he gets struck by lightning and turned into a dog. And then at the end, the girl that he liked before gets struck by lightning and turned into her dog. And that always bothered me. Like, that's the end of it, is that they're two dogs and they're walking together. Like, oh, we're happy together. And I'm like, no, like, this is hell, right? Like, this is a form of hell. You've lost your human body.
It is literally the end of a Goosebumps story.
It is.
And that is much more fitting because it's supposed to be both like a punishment and creepy twist. It's like
My Bad Hair Day, where they're dogs that were turned into people, and then the dog sees the new baby and it's the cat. It's like book 16 or 18 in the Goosebumps series.
Yep.
Jesus. Okay, last thing, right? I think we've wound up to it, and I got to talk about it. It happened in August, and I just found out about it last night. High Fidelity has been canceled.
I guess we owe it to the show to talk about that. I didn't know that was even a concern. I didn't realize High Fidelity was a going concern.
We did a full episode. Will was there. Will was there here last week.
Are you reminding me? I remember.
I mean, both of you guys said that you watched half of the first episode and couldn't do it anymore. So I guess I shouldn't be surprised. But, like, I just need to share because I went down a big, deep hole on High Fidelity, reading the book, watching the movie, buying, like, a perusal copy of the Broadway script. And then, like, I really thought that it would work. Like, that first episode is fucking awful of the High Fidelity TV show, but it really grows into itself. And I was disappointed that I wasn't going to get a second season when I found out. And I wanted to commiserate with you.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's a shame. And I have to say that, like, I think it really kind of doomed itself, like, starting with everybody talking about it being a Disney thing and then it being shoved onto the fucking Hulu platform, and that being, like, kind of a bummer because, like, imagine, I bet if it had done the Disney route, the Disney Plus route, I bet we'd be looking at a second season because it would have been so fresh and so different compared to anything else on there.
Yeah, not only that, if it had been on Disney Plus, those people who were starved for content in February after Mandalorian had ended, they would have rolled into High Fidelity and they would have watched it. And then the same with, like, Love, Victor, if that were on Disney Plus, and then you roll from High Fidelity into Love, Victor. And as much as I hate the way that Disney Plus does it, like, I've watched the first episode of season 2 of Mandalorian, but then we decided, no, we're just going to wait till they're all available and binge through them like we did the first season. Like, the weekly release for something like High Fidelity and for Love, Victor, which I don't know if that's been canceled or not. I really hope it hasn't. That show was legitimately very good. But no, like, that's the other thing, is that High Fidelity, it's hard to look at that as something canceled and then not, like, have your gaze sort of shift over to Love, Victor, because it has the same exact story of this was going to be on Disney Plus, and then they said this is too adult for Disney Plus, we're putting it on Hulu.
I do say that I will say that as somebody that did not enjoy High Fidelity and has not given Love Victor any of my time, and I don't mean that insultingly. I mean like it's just not something that I was interested in, and I have heard a lot of people still buzzing about things like Love Victor and a couple of other Hulu shows like all up in that. Like Love Victor often gets kind of brought into the Hulu repertoire. You know what I mean? Like in the same way that when people talk about Netflix, they can't not talk about like Stranger Things. Like there's definitely been a lot more of that. Whereas like you are the only person I know of that has talked to me about High Fidelity. I think somebody once mentioned to me that they saw that there was a show of it and they weren't going to watch it out of spite because of how much they love the movie. And I was like, that's a weird way of going through life. But anyway, but like I think Love Victor might have a chance to survive this culling. Let me put it that way.
Right, and that's my hope. But that's really the reason why I want to talk about it, and why I wanted to visit, even briefly at the tail end of this episode, High Fidelity, and the whole, like, I don't want that to be the trajectory for every show that was supposed to be on Disney Plus that got shuffled over to Hulu.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Because I think that if it had been a Disney Plus series, it would have started end of February, 10 episodes. It would have brought you into April, and April is when Love Victor happened. So, like, they had a plan for Disney Plus to constantly have new content releasing on a weekly basis, and knew specifically that type of content, right? Because they do have weekly content stuff like the Jeff Goldblum show, and Marvel 616 just came out, and that's going to be, you know, a weekly look behind the scenes of the cinematic universe. But yeah, it's just strange to me.
Yeah, man. They kind of shot themselves in the foot because, and without even really knowing that it was going to happen, because if they had known, I think ahead of time, what this year was going to become for everybody and how much streaming services and specifically like weekly content was going to be kind of really important to people, I think other decisions would have been made, and in a lot of different places. You know, I even look at like their announcements that they're going to do like Soul for free dropping on the 25th of December, and I think that's super intelligent of them, and I think that a lot of it is a lot of lessons were learned from the release of like Mulan, you know, and I think that maybe they'd be much more prone to consider dropping Black Widow over the summer online, no price and stuff like that, if they had really thought about what the next couple of years was going to look like and all that. So I wonder how much is also being colored by the fact that like again, hindsight is just so easy to look back and be like, man, I really wish we had this content then. But they didn't know. They had no idea what people were going to be looking for this year. And like, they never do. But this year more than most, I think, was a little unexpected.
Yeah. And I guess what I would have liked, right? Like, you know that it's available on Hulu. I wish that Disney Plus maybe would have looked at these shows like High Fidelity and done what Fox sort of did to fill their schedule. Like, they bought a bunch of shows from Spectrum, which I don't know anything about Spectrum, but LA's Finest, which I'd love to go deeper on, but I want to finish the first season before we talk about it on the show. They bought LA's Finest from Spectrum and just showed it weekly on Monday nights. And Disney Plus could have done that and been like, yeah, we're going to show the High Fidelity weekly on Disney Plus because we have people who only have Disney Plus. And maybe if they like that first episode, they'll go and get Hulu to binge the whole thing. Like, you're not wrong that this year really had some curveballs, but it's kind of disappointing to see that Disney, which was looking to be this multimedia giant, and we've been talking about that on this show pretty much since the inception of this show, because one of the big start points was Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a shame that they didn't adapt as fast as something like Warner Brothers. Like, the fact that Wonder Woman 84 is also going to drop on the 25th, if you have HBO Max, I'm not going to watch Soul on the 25th anymore, Sejohn. That was the plan for the family, but as soon as Wonder Woman was announced, so we're going to watch Wonder Woman on Christmas, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
we're
there's
gonna
enough
watch
room in the
Wonder
day for
Woman.
both of them, but yes, yeah.
Right,
But
but
I
like
get what
that
you're
was the
saying.
thing, is that
Yeah.
like the one that we want to make sure we watch is Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
Became
Yeah,
the
for sure.
discussion.
And like HBO, you can point to even before that. I mean, the dropping of the witches earlier this year, last month, for Halloween, rather than having that be the in theaters release that it was supposed to be too, right? Like they've been playing their cards very intelligently all along, and I think in retrospect, we're all going to look back at the HBO Max like app and point to that as like doing it right compared to things like the Disney app or even Peacock or even Apple TV in a lot of ways. Like the way that HBO has been handling its streaming material and acquiring all of the stuff from the DCU and all that shit, it's been a very nice experience as a consumer in the middle of all of this to have something like HBO to rely on.
Yeah. And I mean, they also do have the benefit of like seeing the missteps that Disney made with Disney Plus
Mm-hmm.
and being
Mm-hmm.
able to react accordingly.
But well, and having the intelligence to. I mean, I think that's exactly what you're talking about with Disney is not having the intelligence to react to the world in the way that some of these other sites have, and HBO being the perfect example of what that actually looks like.
Yeah. All right. So I think I've touched on every. No, there's one thing I didn't, but I'm gonna save it for next week, and it'll be fun, because then I'm gonna be broken, Sejohn. I'll have broken myself, and I'm excited to share that broken Devon with you, and the listener. But is there anything else that you want to add before we send this one to the vault?
Uh, yeah, man, I like it's good to be past 200 and still doing the show and still being as weird as ever, man.
Yeah. Again, I don't know if I'm ever going to mix Coke and coffee again. Coca-Cola and coffee again. Because
When will we ever? How will we ever talk about the expanding adventures of Hammerman if you don't?
honestly, like Hammerman is ripe for a reboot. Come on, Peacock. You own it, probably. Bring them all back. Bring back Pro Stars. Bring back Hammerman. Bring back these NBC Saturday morning cartoons that had one season but are beloved. Not just
Who
by
had
me.
who had Ace Ventura and The Mask?
The Mask was CBS. I don't know who had Ace Ventura.
It had to have been CBS then, right? Because they had crossover episodes. Maybe not.
But
Maybe not.
I don't know. I mean, I remember specifically being like, it's cool that CBS is where I have to go to watch The Mask. Also, it was on after the weird CBS seasons of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Red Sky seasons, where Shredder was no longer a bad guy. It was Baron Drax, the bug guy.
Weird.
Real weird. Taking a lot of cues from TMNT too, because they had like a Kino stand-in who was sort of the Incredible Hulk. Real weird. Oh my god. Oh my god. You gotta stop me, Sejohn. You gotta stop me.
All right, everybody. But this has been great. If there's anything else you want to hear Devon ramble about, always you can hit him up at Devon D. Degger.
And if you want to talk to Sejohn, like have a regular, normal, tempered conversation about how much you love Toy Story and how much it has affected your life, then you can find him at Siege versus the World.
All right.
All right. And until next time, William, why don't you bring us home?
Thank you for listening to the Say Report with your host Devon Decker and Sejohn Serwick. Please follow the guys on Twitter and Facebook by searching for The Say Report, and you can always subscribe on your podcast channel so this is delivered straight to you and you can enjoy it every week. With apologies to your mother, we'll see you next time.